Welcome to episode 224 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the wet and wild edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. Don't get your hopes up or get too excited. It is a podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. Great, Phil. Wet and wild. A lot of rain this weekend at some of our races that we cover, but a lot of wild stuff that we saw this weekend, of course, across all the series. Ready to get into it and talk about all that we saw.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Penske getting their first podium sweep since 2017 at Road America. Plenty of craziness that started the race there, and it wasn't pretty for the Hondas. We'll go to Sonoma for NASCAR. SVG went and sent Hank Hill and then drifted behind him while Hank Hill was trying to flip him off. Might be one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. Was never a big SVG fan because I was a Scotty McLaughlin guy at supercars, and he went from Ford to GM, but I'm a fan of him now because anybody that will troll and make Austin Hill shut up makes me happy. So SVG won the Xfinity race. That was a decent show there. The Cup race had a lot of argy-bargy, as Calvin Fish would say, a lot of cautions early. Then it became pretty tame. Usual Snoroma tire strategy played a role for Kyle Larson to get another win. It's not like he needed the confirmation that he was making the playoffs, but now he joins Will Byron and Dennis Hamlin as three-time winners in the Cup Series this year. He missed a race, and he's right up there in the points. Dennis Hamlin blows up epically like 2 laps into the race. So not great for Denny. I'm sure you had interesting thoughts about it on his show. So we went over those two there, and then we'll also talk about Fish Lips winning the Canadian Grand Prix. Josh was actually able to see the race. I was only able to see the last 20 laps. But in the end, Fish Lips from the outside pole gets the victory. Lando Norris definitely had a chance to win it. And then, spits a bit, which this isn't the first time that he's done that. And Woody, who started on pole, goes and has a battle with Lewis and gets the last podium spot. So I guess good for Mercedes. I guess good for Woody, but Lewis probably had the better car, and I think he was a faster driver this weekend. But sabotage, as Bill Shatner would say, or whatever. What are they? Subterfuge, whatever. There's stuff going on now at Mercedes, and they're proving why they're going downhill and why Lewis is leaving to go to Ferrari. They're doing it this year the way that they've handled him and they've handled this car. We'll get into all that for those 3 series. We have a big win in Indy next at Road America. Huge result there. The NHRA was at Bristol this past weekend. We'll preview the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It looks like there's a good chance of an American-led team winning overall. So that's a interesting prospect for sure. And there's possibilities of American-run teams winning all 3 classes this year. We'll get into Darwin Triple Crown for supercars. A couple guys that were here at Snoroma this past weekend will be going back to go and race their regular cars there. And then World Superbikes at Misano. The Cup and Xfinity Series will be at Iowa Speedway. Cup for the first time ever. Xfinity for the first time in a few years. And talk about NBC's 2024 debut. Sans Dale Earnhardt Jr., sans some other things. Sounds like Lee Diffie is going to be calling some races, so that'll be an interesting prospect. We'll get into that, and we expect from NBC and also from CW, since CW will be kicking in, I think, with the last 10 races of the series, I think, for the Xfinity, or however many races they have for the playoff. They'll be kicking in for that, so we'll talk about those two. We'll preview and make picks for Cup and Xfinity. There, Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing and gaming in the sim segment, and then we'll call it a day. So we will start with IndyCar and Will Power going and getting his first win in 2 years, 34 races, for giving a Penske sweep there on the podium. Gets the win by 3.26 seconds over Joseph Newgarden, who had went and sent his car in a Bolivian coming out of Canada corner in qualifying, destroyed that car, was able to get the backup out and compete. And then Scott McLaughlin gets third place. So that was, as I mentioned, Penske 1, 2, 3 strategy and cautions definitely assisted in that. The pole sitter for the race was Linus Lundqvist in his first pole as an IndyCar driver. Marcus Armstrong shipped him, and then Joseph Newgarden went and sent Colton Herta, and Colton Herta was not happy about it. Expressed himself in quite an interesting way, too. We'll go through the top 10. So Power, Newgarden, McLaughlin, Alex Palou, two-time winner there. Kyle Kirkwood finishes 5th. Herta, Grosjean, Paddle Award, Marcus Ericsson giving Andretti all their cars in the top 10, and Green Rehal rounding out the top 10. Lundgaard just outside the top 10. Lundqvist recovers to finish 12th. Teo Pochero's had quite an interesting week. Finishes 13th. There were 22 cars on the lead lap. 2 cars that were out of the race, Armstrong and Kiffin Simpson, who hit the fence pretty hard and he had contact with, he had broken a wing and then had contact with Christian Rasmussen that sent him off into the fence. And that ended his day. He had his best qualifying of his career, Kiffin Simpson in 12th. And an Armstrong, who I think I picked to win the race on the fantasy game, promptly goes out there and then shits the bed. Points lead as of now is 5 points between, Will Power goes and takes the points lead by 5 over Alex Palou. And then Scott Dixon, who was the points leader, falls back to 3rd, 11 points behind. So quite an interesting 3-horse race at the moment. Will Power trying to go for a 3rd championship, and Scott Dixon trying to go for number 7, and then Alex Palou trying to go for number 3 as well in 4 years. So, quite an intriguing battle. A lot of strategy going on there. But in the end, it was the Penske guys that dominated the race. 37 of the race's 55 laps were led by the Penske guys, so it makes a lot of sense that they ended up sweeping the podium, Josh. And Will Power breaking a 2-year losing streak. His wife with the health problems that she has had, being able to be there in victory lane. Their son being in victory lane. I think that's the first time since he's kind of grown up a little bit that he's actually been in victory lane. I think he was very little when his dad had made victory lane last. So it was good for him too. Penske, after all the cheating scandal and all that nonsense, just continues to win. If something happens, they go and fade it anyway, Josh. And in this case, for Will Power, he's set himself up right now as a early title favorite after the two Ganassi guys had made their claims so far in 2024.
Well, first of all, for Will Power, what a way to get back in victory lane. Obviously last year not being in, the driver or the winner's circle at all, one of the worst seasons he's had in his IndyCar career. And, so far this year he's been, really good throughout, and, just had the pace throughout the entire, race. Only led 9 laps, but still Penske perfect for Power there, and Penske trio sweeping the podium, which, come to think of it, with him opening, owning the series, like, it's actually kind of crazy that it doesn't happen more often. But, given the fact that the controversy, with the push to pass, it does look suspect. But I guess now that we continue to go throughout the, or leave, that situation, it does, it affects it less, I guess. But yeah, the Chevys, they definitely had pace throughout the field. Not just Penske, but Pato O'Ward had pace as well. Romain Grosjean got his best finish of the season. So you saw a lot of action throughout the field. Of course, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, they had a bit of a battle throughout the race between themselves, but Will Power, kind of with the undercut there, was able to make it work, and being able to get out there and get ahead of everybody and open up a pretty big margin. And even with Joseph Newgarden pitting after him on that last set of pit stops, Newgarden wasn't able to catch up to him there, which I thought might happen. I thought Newgarden had a great car on Sunday, but Power just completely drove away at the very end, and was able to take away a very signature win for him this season. So finally Will Power back in victory lane, of course. But some of the other guys, we talk about, like Colton Herta got a top 10 run, but you look at how his races, and really the last couple of races for him, like he at Indianapolis 500 spun out, had one of the better cars that could pass there. Detroit screwed over by the lengthy cautions, and going on to the wet tires, and still finished well there. But you look at that and possibly a potential win that went up in smoke there. So especially being on pole there. So and then this race getting spun out, or being collected in the first lap, and then having another incident soon after that. So quote AJ Foyt there, one of the misfortunate things last couple of weeks for Colton Herta there. So but now at least he's able to rebound from the back of the field to get up to 6th place there. So that's definitely a good recovery for him there. Of course, a lot of other stuff happened with the two Ganassi cars, the Armstrong, Kiffin Simpson, the first lap incident. That was pretty wild to see there with those two cars. Of course, Scott Dixon, that's another factor that there was with Scott Dixon having issues with his tire blistering after a couple of laps being on the alternates. Seemed like the alternates were more sensitive to wear very quickly, and that paid, especially on the left rear tire there. So that's kind of interesting how that kind of played out. But for Scott Dixon, 21st, that's a very uncharacteristic finish for Scott Dixon, especially on a road course like Road America, where you expect him to at least compete for the podium there. So very uncharacteristic of him to have that type of finish. But for Scott or Will Power, I think he also takes the points lead overall in this. So that's pretty significant as well for him going forward. And now we have to look at him as a championship contender, like his teammate. Both of his teammates really like Alex Palou, so definitely have to consider that. And then of course I think you have to feel for his buddy DJ Flavor Fave there, going out the last couple weeks, pulling out and showing up for his boy, but this week not there, and Will Power actually goes out and wins the race. So kind of funny how that works out. But that was a pretty interesting race throughout. Interesting weekend. Newgarden crashing and qualifying there, pretty hard impact in the kink, but he's able to get out, so thankfully he's okay and all that. And pretty wet weekend overall, except for the race day. So but of course rain definitely a factor throughout the weekend, so definitely affected some people's weekends in terms of being able to get settled and get prepared for this race. But yeah, I mean, I thought Road America very good race for IndyCar, especially after last week, what we saw at Detroit. Definitely a very much more normal race. The start might have been a little bit argy-bargy, but they were able to settle down and get going at some point. And then you saw the strategies play out, and eventually Power going out on top there with that undercut. So yeah, overall definitely a good race, and we got to see somebody win for the first time in a while.
Yeah, it's a good story with Power, and I mean for Penske, after all the issues that Newgarden had qualifying, to go out there and get that done. So credit to them. It's Road America, so I mean to win there is huge. It's one of the biggest races of the season, and it's total commitment to win there. You don't win there by accident. The amount of the high G loads, the speeds, the margin of error in certain areas. I mean, it's just an amazing place. So Penske goes out there, gets her done, and they'll take a week off, and then they'll be back at Laguna Seca. So that'll be interesting. June race at Laguna Seca, so it'll be really effing hot. One thing that will be a point of discussion at Laguna Seca could be Agustin Canapino and whether he's the driver of the number 78 for Juncos Hollander Racing, or Hollinger, or whatever the fuck they are called. Ricardo Juncos has not responded at all through any of the instances of the abuse and hatred towards other drivers. Agustin Canapino not only basically played it off, but then got enraged and started leaning into it as though he was like a certain orange fellow, and he got to the point where it messed with his head enough to where he wasn't in a good enough mind space in the team's belief to go and wheel their race car this weekend. And then there's Pruitt put out his story on Racer, so there's a lot more details in there. Actually, a well-written story by Marshall Pruitt, which is shocking considering the amount of crap that he puts out writing-wise. But it must have gotten the Robin Miller touch or something randomly in that particular story. Nolan Siegel looks like Gilbert Gottfried. His dad's got a lot of money. He's been in Indy Next. He tried to qualify for the Indy 500 and hit the fence twice. Once in first round qualifying and then in the last row shootout, trying to make the show and knock Green Hall out of the 500, went and wrecked his backup car. He raced at Thermal, and I think he raced at what it was, St. Pete. I believe he raced at St. Pete, but I might be wrong on that one. Either way, he has a limited schedule with Dale Coyne, but it sounds like because of the money that his dad can bring to the table for him and his talent, those two things combined could possibly see him in that second seat at Juncos Holland or whatever for the rest of 2024. And I mean, on the one side of things with Canapino, it's a great story in that an Argentinian racing legend comes from driving tin tops, driving cars with doors on them, driving touring cars, jumps into an Indy car, and actually isn't a complete waste of time. And at times last year was very, very fast. This year he hasn't been as fortunate. I think there was a better team dynamic last year because Callum Ilot's a young guy. He's, fast. He's always going for it. Grosjean is kind of an egomaniac, and he's a wrecker by trade. So, and he's probably distracted because he's driving the Lamborghini in World Endurance Championship and all that stuff. So, I don't know what his real focus is. Is it IndyCar or is it running World Endurance Championship? Canapino hasn't taken that step forward this year, and then he has the stuff that happened at Detroit. Teo Pourchaire, yes, he made a mistake. Yes, he ran into him. He wasn't the only person that got ran into last weekend at Detroit. It seems to be a thing here in IndyCar where people just flat drive through each other. It's almost like they're watching NASCAR videos or something, or watching ARCA racing or some crap. But for me personally, I don't care one way or the other because they're irrelevant to me. But I also wouldn't condone that kind of behavior. The lack of contrition and the lack of remorse is the biggest problem. We know Canapino's not an English-speaking person first. I get it. He's learning English. He speaks it better than a lot of guys on the grid. But he understands what he's liking. Every single instance of this, he's played it off and has gotten to the point where he's basically saying that it's BS. So I don't know. He must be learning from a certain person that seems to live in that certain world too. Dude was a championship winning race car driver. If you're telling me that this is how it went in Argentinian touring cars, I can only imagine what the hell happened on the racetrack. Because if he thinks that it's okay to just have this kind of like vitriol towards one another, they must have been destroying equipment like left, right, and center. But in IndyCar, when you have a low-funded team and you're basically have no ability for whatever reason to just say, yeah, I disavow this, and we need to be more positive in how we express ourselves. And I know that it's been very negative and I didn't react to it the way that I should have. He probably doesn't. The point is he has to. I know IndyCar is terrible with PR, and it's been proven since last fall, since the end of that season, how bad they've been with PR. But the reality of the world is this guy is sitting there. You sent one guy out of IndyCar basically because he wanted greener pastures, so he went to World Endurance Championship, and within two races, he won overall. the guy can drive a race car. They got rid of him, a guy who's talented that was a Formula One prospect, and they kept Canapino. And then they bring in Roman Grosjean, who's whatever. I don't get the fascination with him, other than he almost ate it in a fire at Bahrain a couple of years ago. I mean, he was a F2 champion. He got out alive, thankfully, but he crashes a lot. And he's a douche to the point where root beer floatheads teams making faces at him. Like, what is his redeeming quality in an IndyCar? It's like, other than that St. Pete race where he wrecked with Scott McLaughlin last year, and I guess a couple of races that he had for coin, like, can anybody name a race that he stood out and he did something that was so amazing? Really? I don't get it. He's a wannabe Sebastian Bourdais, but he's not Sebastian Bourdais. Sebastian Bourdais actually won races. Sebastian Bourdais kept his equipment on the functional. Sebastian Bourdais was a guy who was a team builder and a leader. And yeah, he might have had his whiny moments, which he did, but he also had fire. He had a fire within him that made him so tough to beat that he won 4 consecutive championships. So, I mean, I guess my question to you, Josh, is like, what do you think in terms of what they're going to do? Does Canapino finish out this season? Or is that the end of him after he sat out this past weekend at Road America?
I think it's tough to say because, I mean, I think they probably give him, they put him back in the car for Laguna Seca. But, I think if his performance suffers and, it's clear that he's not up for the task going forward, then we could see him being canned permanently soon after and put in put off to the side and everything. And I think it also affects just the Juncos Hollinger racing team in general, because Juncos is also a bit complicit in this as well. And I think this is definitely, from what I saw, this decision to pull him out for Road America is definitely probably from the Hollinger side of that team and everything. And I think he's pretty serious about wanting to field his team in IndyCar and compete for races, but it's going to be hard to do that when you have a lot of distraction from side affairs like we've been seeing here the last couple of weeks. So and Hollinger can easily go somewhere else and fund another team or something like that. So that's something you have to consider, because I think I definitely don't think it's. I mean, they've been around for a while. They were in 2019 when they booted Alonso out of the Indy 500, but obviously a 2-car effort wouldn't be the case if it weren't for Hollinger in that team. So I think if his performance suffers and it's clear he's still driving distracted or just isn't in it, then I think you're out, next guy up. So we'll see how this plays out. I mean, put Nolan Siegel in that car. He's definitely a more than capable driver, and we've seen that he's definitely got some cojones with the Indy 500 qualifying effort that he put up there, willing to go for it all with everything on the line there. So I think for him, definitely a big opportunity that he had this weekend to get in that car, and didn't finish too well, but it's at least a start for him to possibly get into a full-time ride in this series. So that's certainly it's something to think about. And also for Canapino, like I mean, I think it's cult of personality, for sure, with him being unwilling to be quick to, I guess, denounce rabid fans online. And we see it everywhere. We see it in F1 with especially Lewis versus Max in 2021, the culture, I think, was very animated, I guess, with the two fan bases and everything. I think one more on one side than the other, but I think just in general, and we see it with other fan bases, and I think other sports, and it's trying to look online, trying to get some insight, and is this because with Argentina, like their soccer team, is very successful, very popular. Is the Argentinian like fan culture around that also kind of behaving in the same way? And I couldn't get like a straight answer. Is very mixed on that, but I think it doesn't really matter like what the culture is. I think it's just about who you are, how you carry yourself as a person and everything. And clearly he's not willing to, or hasn't shown the ability to shut that down completely. And it seems like even if you're in a situation where you're just like, okay, you don't care, then show you don't care. Because I mean, clearly it seemed like he was in a situation where his mental state wasn't ready to race at all on Friday, so they pulled him out and everything. So just be a good guy, and then don't have to worry about all that stuff. So it's unfortunate because I mean, I agree with you. I mean, we've picked him a few times at least. He's good enough where I think we've picked him a few times in our picks as a wild card. Throughout the last season, not this year, but definitely I think last year. At least for me, I remember him being picked a few times. So definitely talented enough to be an IndyCar, but can you handle fan base and all that, and being able to withstand pressure and all that stuff from your own fans? Got to be able to do that and everything, or otherwise you're not gonna be able to be focused on doing your actual job. So we'll see what happens, what comes out of this. Can you respond, put up a good effort next weekend at Laguna Seca? We'll see. But definitely it's not something that you want to see, especially going after unfairly. I think going after the another driver, whether it's Cal Milat or Tio Pocher, definitely not something you want to see. And if it continues, you definitely got to take action, and might be the only way to deal with the problem is to just remove him from the ride completely.
And I know that for Ricardo Juncos, who's been involved in Road Indy for many years and was a driver at one point, I don't think that this is the way he wants to go out of IndyCar. Yes, he harbors mediocrity in a Instagram influencer in Indy Next. Yes, he does own teams in all these series, but the reality of the world is this is the thing that's sticking on him, and he's been silent. And I think as much as anything, other than that Canapino's inability to take any acceptance or going and handling it, is the fact that Ricardo Juncos has not responded at all. And I think that in itself is just like PR 101, like an absolute abject failure. I mean, whatever, sit him out, not sit him out, but like literally come up with a mea culpa. Like, dude, it's not that hard to write a freaking quick, blurb and have him record a video. I mean, that's essentially what Larson did, and he went and got a better ride out of it. I mean, and so that's like, which we're going to talk about here in a second anyway with Larson, but the point is it's really not that hard. And they've made it way worse on themselves, and they were in the leader circle situation last year with that car. Now they're probably going to be back in the leader circle conversation this year. Whether Canapino's in the car, Nolan Siegel's in the car, whoever. But the difference is with Nolan Siegel, he's got daddy's money on top of semblance of talent, but he has daddy's money behind him. So he could go with Hollinger and they could probably just basically go and buy up the team, if anything. And then we'd get rid of that whole toxicity. Or, we don't know what will happen with that. I mean, there's other wheels and moving parts at the back end of the field, but we'll go and see what happens with that in a couple of weeks at Laguna Seca. I'll go to the standings. Like I mentioned, Power leads by 5 points over Palou, 11 over Dixon. Then there's a big gap to Pato O'Ward in fourth, and he's 5 points ahead of both Scott McLaughlin and Kyle Kirkwood. And he is, 8 points ahead of Colton Herta in seventh. Joseph Newgarden is in eighth, Rossi ninth, Felix Rosenquist in 10th. So that's, you look at, those are I'm looking at it's the 78 is with Canapino is 22nd in driver points. So the 6 car is definitely inside. I figure the 66 has got some sweat going on. The 20, the 18, you probably got Pietro Fittipaldi as well as probably another one in play. The 51, the 51 is probably in play for that too. So we'll see what that's something, another piece of news. David Malukas, who was with McLaren, got hurt, got let go from McLaren. He's going to be driving the Meyer-Shank number 66 for the remainder of 2024, which on one end is very good because he's really good on ovals, and that's something that Rosenquist has never really been amazing at. So it's a good balance. Rosenquist has shown a lot of speed this year. That hasn't been the case with whoever's been in that 66 car. So we'll see what Malukas brings to the table. And he's been fast. Another guy, of course, with daddy's money, at least for a portion of his career. Now being able to prove himself in a funded effort, what can he do? I'm assuming that I would assume it's a longer term deal, and that between Jim Myers, a multi-millionaire, and Shank, who's, grassroots guy, and an Alio, when he does pay his taxes, is pretty wealthy. They aren't going to go and turn down that HMD money by any stretch of the imagination. And that would probably be an avenue, depending on how many engines there are, for HMD to get in IndyCar as a full-time participant. But that's beside the point. I mean, Malukas is back on the grid. He's a good dude. He's goofy. He does good stuff on social media. I think he's good for the series. And it'll add another competitive driver out there. Tom Blomqvist probably going to be back in a Honda DPI or whatever here in the next few months, because the Honda program is probably going to be moving back over to Meyer-Shank, with the likelihood of Wayne Taylor Andretti going to Cadillac. So that's been out there. I don't think that it's like breaking news by any stretch of the imagination. Action Express will continue with Cadillac, but Ganassi's getting out of the Cadillac deal, so they're going to go. I don't know what they're going to do, but Andretti, who with Wayne Taylor, who was a GM guy for many years, Michael Andretti, who drove Chevy-powered Indy cars himself, had Chevy-powered cars with Andretti Global or Andretti Autosport, or however many different names they've had. So he's had GM, he had Holden's in Australia. So, I mean, that's going to be a big swap around of teams and manufacturers. So it's interesting what the curiosity is what Ganassi will do with all the different manufacturers that are involved in World and in that hypercar DPI deal. Who will go there? But we'll see what happens with that. So we move forward from IndyCar, spend a lot of time on that, and we will move to the NASCAR Cup and Xfinity at Sonoma. Kyle Larson gets the victory there. The Hendrick cars were fast all weekend, so it's not like it's all that shocking. But in the end, he had to move his way up through after his last pit stop to get to the win, and that's what he did there. Kyle Larson led 19 laps and won for the third time in 2024, his 26th career victory. There were 8 cautions or 22 laps, and most of it happened basically in the first 42 laps of the race, where there was multi-car incidents aplenty there. So Larson gets the victory over Michael McDowell. Christopher Buescher was third. William Clyde Elliott II was fourth. Ross Chastain rounding out the top 5. He had a fast race car all weekend as well. AJ Allmendinger finished 6th. Ryan Blaney 7th. Tyler Reddick, who made contact with Larson late in a later portion of the race and then basically fell back, was 8th. Christopher Bell 9th, and Todd Gilliland gets a top 10 finish. LaJoie actually did well. 11th. There's issues. I think, Kyle Busch got dumped by Ross Chastain. Martin Truex Jr. ran out of fuel and ended up finishing 27th, last car in a lead lap. Joey Logano started on pole, finished 21st, and his strategy didn't go in his way. Carson Hocevar had decent pace, finished beyond his teammate. That's probably the first time I think all year, or when both cars have been on track, that Zane Smith's actually beaten Carson Hocevar. Tells you how bad it's been this year for that team. But I mean, for Larson, he had pace all weekend. All the Hendrick cars did. And he goes out there, gets a victory that will help him out in terms of the playoff, because, with all the things, it took them forever to finally give him a waiver and stuff. But now he has a waiver, so he doesn't have to worry about making the playoffs and playoff points. Now he can just keep on padding stats, and he has taken over the points lead again with his win on Sunday by 14 over Clyde, 26 over Hamlin. Then it's a bit more of a gap there. I mean, right now there's essentially 5 drivers that are within one race. Reddick is minus 49 in 4th, and Martin Truex Jr. is minus 53 in 5th. And then you have William Byron there right on the outside, minus 66. So there's 4 drivers that have a lot of the playoff points. They have double-digit playoff points. It's Larson, Hamlin, Byron, and Christopher Bell. They're all the multi-time winners so far this year. So, there was a lot of craziness early in the race, a lot of destruction, probably unnecessarily, but it's the way they race these days. I mean, Hamlin blows up early. Not sure what happened with Keebler. Then there was a wreck with a bunch of the Fords there, which included Joey Logano and Richard. Yeah, that was the first thing that basically started the end of the day for Chase Briscoe. You had Gumby, Cindric, Burton, Logano, Briscoe, and Stenhouse. Then you had the stage break. The 33 of Will Brown had issues. The current points leader in the V8 Supercars Championship, driving for RCR. I picked him in my pick'em pool, and it went to hell in a handbasket. Cam Waters had a rough weekend, and then ended up wrecked and out. So brutal day. Oh yeah, that's right. Ty Gibbs went and he blew a tire and then hit the fence. I think he hit the wall on the front straight, then hit the wall going off into turn one. So yeah, that's what happened to Keebler. Yeah, that was that. And I'm trying to look at Then there was the big wreck where I think Eric Jones sent Josh Berry into the hairpin and he pinballed into I don't know how many people, which included Cam Waters. So that was a bad deal there. Took out Bell and Byron, Truex, amongst others. Then you had Gumby got into another one, got involved with McDowell, and he came back from that and finished second. So credit to him on that. And that is a first. I'm actually giving credit to Michael McDowell. And then Gags in there. And then after that basically was the end of the RG Bargy. But I mean, when it comes down to it, Larson has been probably the best driver so far this year. He's missed a race and he still leads. He's back in the points lead. And I think going into a racetrack that they're going to have extra practice is a bad sign for Kyle Larson and for why am I forgetting his crew chief's name? Cliff Daniels, thank you. It's starting to have a feel like 2021 when he went out there and did a Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson 110 races and basically opened a can on everybody. He's needed a couple of years, I think, to figure out this car. Now that he has, I think he's pretty comfortable because he gets to race his high limit series and do all that. And he's in a good place, and that's a dangerous thing. That team is hard to beat when they get on a run, and it's up to these guys to start responding, but they couldn't do it on Sunday at Sears Point, Josh.
Yeah, you bring up Kyle Larson, and one of the things he did on Sunday was tie Dale Earnhardt Jr. In the wins column in career wins in NASCAR, 26 there. So, which obviously he's going to surpass that. Not a very high mark, but obviously a very significant. Dale, significant figure in the sport still and all that. So, and Hall of Famer as well. So, very significant mark to tie there for Kyle Larson there. But yeah, the strategy obviously worked out. Where they were one of the last ones to pit and put them on the attack. That's it. Exactly what Cliff Daniels wanted was for his driver to be on the attack mode at the end, and went out and did that, and was able to narrow down the gap from 4 seconds or so to Truex and Chris Buescher, and able to pass them both inside one lap and take over the lead and go on to win the race. So home victory for Larson, obviously being from nearby in Northern California there. So obviously for him, big victory on top of the waiver news and all that stuff. He was he didn't seem bothered by it, but you wondered how they were going to respond after being given back their playoff status the week leading up to it, and then going out and grabbing the win here. That's the way, I guess, that you want to respond to winning or to getting that playoff waiver, is to go out and win the next race and show up and say you own these guys here in this series, which I think definitely do in terms of points right now. And he's been able to just go out and go on a tear. And you talk about Iowa coming up next and with extra practice time. Well, they were one of the teams in the tire test a couple weeks ago after the Coca-Cola 600, so they've already got some data from this. So add on to that, along with a couple of other drivers. But we saw how, and I don't know how many laps they ran, but we saw how Joey Logano, North Wilkesboro, going out there and just flat out dominating after the repave, and they had a ton of tire test laps. Larson here at Iowa having tire test data, will they be able to go out and dominate there? Which this is going to be an interesting one with the half of a repave in part of the corners there at Iowa. We'll see how that comes out and how they're able to perform there. But there's an opportunity here, Larson, of course, and bring up the tracks that we're going to next year on the schedule. They've got Nashville's coming up, which he's won there before as well. So there's potential for Larson to go on a bit of a summer heater here as we transition into the summer and go out and put a hurting on the field as they get ready and stack up as many playoff points as possible. So there's potential there for him to go out and do that. And you bring up him being able to figure out this next gen car and everything. Well, I mean, last year they came runner-up in the championship, and the year before that, they didn't make the Final Four in drivers' points, but certainly owners' standings, they were able to make the Final Four there. So, they've figured out a way to be there at the end, even if, they haven't gotten the right result. So, if they've actually figured out, look out, he might be putting a run like you said in 2021 when he won 10 races in the championship there. So, definitely a lot going there for Larson. But, of course, for the other guys, of course, for Martin Truex, I mean, that was a pretty interesting ending there, which I thought he was interesting that he kept pace, within a second to Kyle Larson for most of the final laps. And then at the end, kind of started to drop back. And then the final lap, he dropped way back. And then, running off of, turn 11 there, going off there and running out of fuel. That's probably the worst spot to run out of gas, because you have, you're on flat land there. And if you run out of gas, there's no way to, get fuel back into the car with any elevation there. So, which is interesting because he ran out there and then effectively came to a stop well short of the finish line, but I guess was somehow able to get it going enough to cross the line finally, some 3 minutes after the final lap had already been over. So which is kind of interesting there. But for him, that's pretty significant. Lost a lot of points here for having a good run, where they were able to get playoff or stage points in stage 2. They were in contention for the win. So, if later in the year, which I highly doubt, but if it comes down to it and later in the year, he's in a situation where he needs to have a good spot, to finish, whether it's the next round or possibly the cutoff race for the playoffs. Definitely could be looking back on this race as a huge missed opportunity, and being able to have enough points for that. So that's real unfortunate for him. On the other hand, Chris Buescher led laps, of course, and you picked him to win, which could have been a possible scenario there, but just didn't have the tires at the end, of course, being longer. But he had dropped back a lot, even well before the final lap. So I wonder if they were in kind of that same fuel situation, and they just figured out or realized that they were in that situation a lot sooner than Truex did, and they were able to kind of save fuel and make it to the end there. So yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, we call it Snoroma and all that, but I thought at least the finish was very intriguing with the different strategies there and everything. So that was good, of course. And then Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch get together on the final lap, and that cost Kyle Busch some points there. So Kyle Busch, getting screwed over again as of late and having some bad luck. So we'll see how he treats Ross Chastain here in the next couple of weeks. And then Ross Chastain also got bumped out of the way on the final lap by Chase Elliott there. So Chase going there and getting a 4th place finish there to I think continue his streak of not having a finish less than 20th to start out the season, which is actually pretty incredible. So yeah, I mean, a lot happened in this race, a lot of argy-bargy the first 2 stages, but at least we had at the end kind of a played out finish where we got to see all the different strategies play out and got to see some, I guess, good racing there at the end with Buescher versus Truex, and then Kyle Larson just overtaking both of them.
Yeah, definitely a lot to take in there. And you mentioned Kyle Busch. I mean, the points for him, he's actually 8 points out of the cutoff now, because Darrell Wallace Jr. currently sits at the cutoff spot. Buescher, even though he had the misfortune at the end of the race with the fuel and all that, he still was able to finish 3rd and gain ground on the cutoff. And now he is 24 points ahead of Darrell Wallace Jr. there in 15th. Right now, 9 different drivers have won. Truex is the highest placed driver that hasn't won. Right now in 10th place, but would be, in terms of points wise, he'd be, 3rd, 4th, 5th. He'd be 5th. Like I mentioned, I did mention it earlier, he's 5th in points. So I mean, he's been running pretty well. The win is probably around the corner for him. Keebler Gibbs is another one. He's tied with Brad Keselowski and a point ahead of Christopher Bell. So it's a matter of time for him. So those are interesting. I mean, Blaney, another one that probably you would think would win. Chastain has won the last couple of years. Chris Buescher last year went on a run during the summer. Bubba hasn't won in a while, but there are some good racetracks, Iowa being one of them, Nashville, I think, being another one. The super speedway type racing. So then you have Atlanta and Daytona, et cetera, et cetera. So there's options for him too. And then Kyle Busch could win anywhere, even though he's driving for RCR. So that's something to look at. Logano right now is 16 points out. So 8 points out Kyle Busch, 16 points out Joey Logano, and then Briscoe with his DNF goes from, I think, being in the cutoff or close to the cutoff to being 27 points out. He's ahead of Gumby, Cindric, and Daniel Suarez, but that doesn't count for crap because both of them have wins. So that's that. Iowa, of course, coming up for the Cup Series. For Xfinity, the last time Fox will show the Xfinity Series for the foreseeable future, amongst a bunch of different things that are happening. Race hubs ending tomorrow because we're recording this on a Monday. Wonder who's going to be left after all that, considering how bad they cover races as it is. But the Zip buy now, pay later 250 at Snoroma Definitely was pretty boring. There wasn't a whole lot going on. Uh, Keebler Gibbs dominated the race. Yeah, you picked Keebler Gibbs to win this, I think. So you picked Keebler Gibbs. I picked John Hunter Nemechek, and that was a mistake. Shane Van Gisbergen gets his second consecutive win, starting from pole, got a stage win on top of it. So, great day for him. He also sent Austin Hill, which is always great for the world. Sheldon Creed got his 94th second place finish in the Xfinity Series. Sam Mayer finishes third. Austin Green, the son of David Green, gets a top 5 finish in the three-dimensional services car. That's Doug Peterson's team. They're running TA2. So, or they were running in TA2. And Austin Green was there. Hank Hill rounds out the top 5. Justin Allgaier, Chandler Smith, John Nemechek, Cole Custer, and Parker Kligerman rounds out the top 10. You had Parker Retzlaff, who got some stage points, along with Jesse Love, Riley Herbst, 11th through 13th. AJ Allmendinger got a second in stage 1, finished 17th on the day. Alfredo got stage points in stage 1, and so did Sammy Smith, but issues for both of those guys. I mentioned Keebler, who had the accident, led 26 laps, won a stage. He was involved in that multi-car wreck on lap 51, then proceeded to go and rage, burn out, and destroy other people's cars on top of it, including his teammate Chandler Smith. So I don't know what Reverend Gibbs gives his son, grandson for going and destroying their equipment, but this one is SVG going out there and kind of imposing his will. Did have an issue with getting back through the field, but on restarts, he was just absolutely dirty and went out there and did something that a lot of people have wanted to do to Austin Hill, which is go and send him into the dirt. And I think in the end, it was a racing deal. I mean, he probably overshot the corner, sure. Hill didn't want to say anything because he's a bitch. Because he can't help himself. He's like Agustin Canapino, except he's an inbred from Georgia. Walking hypocrisy. But yeah, he had to sit there and eat a piece of humble pie while SVG was doing drifting around him, which was, I think, the best part of the weekend for NASCAR. But now he's solidly doesn't have to worry about playoff. I mean, I think now he's working towards trying to accumulate as many stage points as he can the rest of this regular season, while learning these racetracks, while learning the ovals. Colleague has not been great on the ovals this year. So this is where they're going to have to maximize their opportunity, Josh, and they're 2 for 2, or 2 for 3. They probably could be 3 for 3. And I have a hard time believing that other people are going to give them any resistance, especially at Chicago. I think that one you could just write in. Watkins then will probably be a little more difficult, and then the Roval will be interesting, but SVG doing SVG things.
Yeah, he went out, did exactly what he has been known to do, and he went out there, dominated the majority of that race, and the final restart there, of course, battling with Austin Hill, and I really wanted to see that race play out under green, but because I thought that was going to be interesting. Or SVG setting up Austin Hill for the pass for the win there, and you could tell he was itching to get close. Like he fell back a little bit, and then starting to get close to him, and then the caution came out, and then restart happens, and SVG just sends it into turn 2 there at or turn 3, whichever turn it is at Sonoma, and I mean, there's an argument I think you can make for SVG. Like, he definitely sent it in there, but I think he was able to get the space. He had the space there in that turn, and then Austin Hill kind of turned down into him, and that's kind of where they collided there. So I think you can give a bit of a nod of the argument, but I also think SVG definitely took advantage of the opportunity to be in that position. So I think overall racing deal, and definitely good hard racing. He didn't race him dirty or anything like that. They just came together, and Austin Hill lost all his momentum and fell back to 5th place there. So for SVG did it in the nicest way possible, I think, to Austin Hill after what happened with them between the two of them at Coda earlier this year, where they both got into it, neither of them won. So, and SVG winning this race, pretty big deal, obviously, with points in the playoffs. So you make a good point there that he was able to win, or get enough stage points from here on out, which we have a couple of tracks, and you mentioned the road courses, Chicago, Watkins Glen later on this year, but also look at the other tracks that he did well at the beginning of the year, like Atlanta still on the schedule, which, well, they're beginning, I think, Cup is beginning the playoffs for them, but I think that's definitely a track that he could perform well out, finish top 5 there beginning of the season. Daytona finished relatively well despite getting into it with throughout that race. So a couple of tracks for him where besides the road courses where he could finish in the top 10, and or at least potential for good stage points there. So I mean, it's just 2 of them, and there's going to be plenty of others and everything, but definitely for him to capitalize on stage points, there's plenty of opportunity from here on out, and 2 wins, you can definitely take more risks in that department, I guess. So that's a good deal for him there. So very dominant performance, and I think it also just shows to his skill, because if you look at the data, never got past under green. Whatever positions he lost were under caution. So that shows how good a driver he is on road courses and everything. So if he ever figures it out, if he continues to learn and figures things out on ovals, I mean, look out, this guy might be really good here in the Xfinity, and he's more than likely gonna be in Cup next year. So it's gonna be interesting to see that play out in a car that's very similar to what he's used to in supercars. So once he gets to that opportunity, which he has a little bit this year on ovals, and really understands things, he could be a contender in a very quick amount of time in the Cup Series. So yeah, I mean, this definitely very interesting race, and definitely a very entertaining moment there at the end with Austin Hill. I like the juxtaposition of Austin Hill giving him the bird there on the cooldown lap, and SVG just doing burnouts like right in front of his face. That was a very entertaining moment there, and I definitely liked seeing that. It was just what a way to go out and troll there, and go out and celebrate that victory. So yeah, I don't know why, I didn't think he was going to win for some reason. When we made our picks last week, I was like, yeah, there's probably no way he gets 2 in a row, right? I mean, I know he's good on road courses, but I just, the way that these races play out, I just don't know if he can go out and get a second win in a row. And man, he proved me wrong there. So honestly, I was thinking about him, but last week making picks, but this week, well, I guess we'll pick him at Chicago, I guess, but he definitely showed he was able to get it done on Saturday night at Sonoma.
Yeah, there might be a rare instance where we both pick the same exact driver. I'm predicting that now. We can go back to this in a few weeks' time, but I think there's going to be an instance where there might be one guy that's picked twice because he'll be racing in both of those races at Chicago. But we'll see what happens. But SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, going to be able to be comfortable in the playoff now with his result, getting a second consecutive win, moves himself up to fourth in the playoff standing with his second win. 7 drivers in with a victory at the moment. AJ Allmendinger, Riley Herbst, and Sheldon Creed are all pretty close together points-wise. Parker Kligerman kind of in his own zone. And then Sammy Smith plus 11 over Ryan Sieg, plus 30 over teammate Buckshot Jones, and plus 31 over Anthony Alfredo. Parker Retzloff minus 65, and Brennan Poole, they're counting being in contention at minus 73. So, yeah, I mean, the driver's points there. I mean, SVG now is in 10th overall in points, so there is that. I mean, Custer has not won this year. He leads overall the points by 12 over both Hill and Smith, who both have 2 wins, 24 over Justin Allgaier, who has 10 stage wins. And then, yeah, SVG is 4th in playoff points with his 2 wins. You have 5 of the top 9. 5 of the top 9 or 5 of the top 10 have not won a race so far this year. So there's plenty to come along probably for those guys in their chance to make the playoff. But there are competitive cars. I mean, Sammy Smith, Sieg, Buckshot Jones are all possible drivers that can win. Sieg's never won, but he got close, of course, at Texas. Smith won 1 race last year. Buckshot Jones has won multiple times in his career. Alfredo, if he were to win, would be huge for the sport if he was able to make it in with the Hour Motorsports team. And then Jordan Anderson made it last year with Jeb Burton, but Jeb Burton's having a nightmare year this year, so really it's Parker Retzloff who's his option there. Okay, let us move over to Formula One. Fish Lips goes and gets yet another victory. I think there was some stat that he's won 50 out of the last 75 Grand Prix or some craziness. Which, I mean, that's in 50 wins. There was only Alan Prost for forever that was at 50 wins, or 51 when he ended his career in 1993. Then it was Michael Schumacher and him. And then it was Vettel, Schumacher, Vettel, and Prost, and then it became Schumacher, or then it became Lewis Hamilton, Schumacher, Vettel, and Prost, and now you have Fish Lips in there as well with, I don't know what Grand Prix victory it is at this point, but he gets the win, but it wasn't straightforward, similar to Imola, similar to some of the more recent races. Go out there and getting that result. It's his 6th win of 2024. So that's yeah, I mean, that's he won 4 out of the first 5, and yeah, so yeah, Verstappen gets that victory over Lando Norris by just under 4 seconds. George Russell rounding out the podium. Sir Lewis Hamilton 4th, Oscar Piastri 5th, Alonso Stroll at home, Ricciardo, who cursed out Jacques Villeneuve, which is hilarious. Jacques Villeneuve looks like a character from a Pixar movie, the way he walks. Gasly and Ocon being told to move over for Gasly not being able to pass Ricciardo, but then not giving him back the spot. So the continued drama at Alpine on top of the fact that they have a pretty useless car. Strategy there where I think Lando Norris and McLaren went for slicks, and that affected his ability to go and stay out front or have chance to affect fish lips, and that was essentially a big key to why he wasn't able to get his second Grand Prix win in 3 starts. But fish lips, it wasn't there. They weren't amazingly fast for parts of the weekend. But it seems like, per usual, when it comes time to show up in qualifying, he's able to find a couple of tenths, essentially, and with that, it's virtually unstoppable, and that was actually win number 60. Interesting. Okay. So win number 60 for him. He'd won, yeah. I mean, he's in the last 3 years, he's won 44 races. Interesting how that's, yeah. So he's won, yeah, 50 of his 60 wins, yeah. 2 or 6, 7, 3, yeah. 50 of his 60 wins have come in the last 66 and then 75 races. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, they had to kind of sort of work for it, because of McLaren being there, Woody getting the pole, tying him with the exact same time, which happened back in '97 at the European Grand Prix, title decider between Villeneuve, Schumacher, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But yeah, I mean, you said you picked Lando Norris, went out on a limb, and I think you were going to actually be right. But in the end, Fishups goes out there and does what he's basically done for the last 3 years, which is get another victory.
Yeah, get another victory, of course. Number 60 for Mr. Sim Racer Max Verstappen there. So, yeah, exactly like you said, yeah, this wasn't straightforward, and he definitely had to work for it. But obviously he's won enough times to know what to do to be in position to win, and goes out and grabs another win there. Which I think for McLaren, they really lost an opportunity to possibly win this race. They didn't pit when they should have, when Red Bull with Verstappen, George Russell, Piastri all pitted at the same time. They kept them out an extra lap there, and then coming back around, there was the possibility of Lando Norris, beating his teammate out there, which he did. But then, later on when it was time to pit again, you just wasn't in a good position to be able to get a good pit exit with the dry line, and then having to go out into the wet part, very damp part of the racetrack first, and you see him the urgency to try to get to the lead, but almost wiping out there on slicks in that that pavement there. So yeah, I mean, this was an opportunity for Lando just as much as it was for Verstappen. So Lando had an opportunity, and they probably should have won this race. So It was otherwise, very interesting, with George Russell leading throughout the first part of this race, and hanging tough with Lewis at the end. That was also interesting. So yeah, Verstappen figured out how to take advantage of the rain, and figured out how to establish the dry line there. So I think it was also just misfortunate for McLaren there with Lando because of how the yellows fell there, especially Logan Sargent. They're causing a couple of yellow flag situations there, which kind of interesting. And then you saw the deal with Carlos Sainz also being involved in a yellow. So some stuff there, I think that it played out a little bit better. We could have seen McLaren win, but they just kind of messed up, I think, a little bit on their strategy, and that prevented them from winning. Which I think being in this situation though is good because they can learn from it, and they can certainly figure out what to do next time when there's this situation. Obviously, in order to win races, you have to be up there and compete for podiums and stuff to be able to be up front and have enough fortune there. Which even then, after all the pit stops kind of went through and everything, still had to kind of fight with the Piastri and George Russell there at the end for Lando. And it wasn't quite straightforward for Verstappen because he was still having handling issues there at the end. So there was still some doubt with whether he could get the victory, but with the way things played out, just didn't really have to worry about anything. But for the other guys, yeah, I mean Russell, he led a good portion of this race. So you have to wonder if he's thinking about possible missing out on a potential win there. So definitely for those guys, yeah, definitely a missed opportunity. But I thought it was entertaining with the rain and making that interesting. I was thinking about 2011. We saw Jenson Button there with McLaren getting a wild victory there with how wet and wild that race was. Thought maybe something similar. I mean, not quite, but seeing some competition up front for once. Very enjoyable to see that. So wonder if we can get another. I mean, doubt it, but it'd be nice to have another wet weather race. I mean, for crying out loud, we saw Haas up there for a bit while it was still pretty wet. So that was also interesting there. But yeah, I mean, for Verstappen, number 60, which obviously very significant win, and if he keeps winning at this clip, I mean he'll be at Lewis's win number. If he averages 10 wins a season for the next 4 years, that's pretty significant. So we'll see how he does, but hopefully the regulations change enough where he doesn't get to Lewis's number just quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they do. The new regulations came out for 2026. Cars are going to be narrower, and then they'll also be shorter. So that'll be something that'll help. They're going to essentially have like a push-to-pass system instead of DRS. So that'll be something utilizing more of that electric regeneration, energy regeneration. So there's different things that comes with that. Cars look all right. They look better than the F2 cars, that's for sure. But we'll see what happens and what those engines are like in a couple of years. Well, not really a couple of years, really next year, once they start kind of bringing them out and testing them, in a sense, at least mules to go and get data. The points for the drivers, what is that, 40, 54, 56 points. Verstappen over Charles Leclerc. Leclerc and Norris, 7 points separating those two. Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, separated by a point. Sergio Perez had a nightmare weekend. He gets an extension, but promptly goes out in Q1 and then had issues during the race. Oscar Piastri is in 6th. George Russell is 14 points ahead of Lewis, who is 14 points ahead of Alonso. Yuki Tsunoda rounding out the top 10. Teams Championship, Red Bull is 49 points ahead of Ferrari. Then Ferrari is 40 points ahead of McLaren, who is then ahead of 88 points ahead of Mercedes, which is just crazy to think. This time last year where McLaren was compared to where they are now. And then Mercedes has 66 point lead. Yeah, it looks like on Aston Martin. Then RB is 30 points behind Aston, and then the battle for the back end positions. Haas has 7 points in 7th. Alpine has 5 points in 8th. Williams has 2 points in 9th, and then Kick Save and a Beauty Slobber has no points still. And then their next race will be at Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. So the Aramco Gran Premio de España 2024. Also, just call it the freaking Spanish Grand Prix. They'll race. That'll be the first of a triple header, which will lead into Austria and then the British Grand Prix. So 3 weeks in a row racing once they have this week off for Formula One. We'll move forward to the GSP Roundup. The first story is Indy Next, which was at Road America, and it was a huge moment for Jamie Chadwick, the 3-time W Series champion, goes out and gets her first win, and she had to work hard for that race the whole entire time, so credit to Jamie Chadwick, the first woman to win on a road course in Indy Next, third woman to win in Indy, what is now Indy Next. So it was Indy Lights. Sarah McCune and Pippa Mann also won. And then also take into account Toyota Atlantics, or the Atlantic Championship, where Catherine Legg won, and then so did Simona Di Silvestro. So, I mean, that you're talking about a bunch of ladies that, and I think also they forgot Anna Beatrice, because they had said Sarah McCune or something. That was going way back. And then, Anna Beatrice did win, I think it was at Iowa Speedway. So, that's something. So, that's an extra one. But Jamie Chadwick goes out there, gets the victory, beating her teammate Louis Foster in the process, and holding off Foster and Jacob Abel, who is the points leader. Reese Gold, Kaio Collette rounding out the top 5. Callum Hedge, Josh Pearson, Bryce Aaron, Yuvan Sundarmurthy, the Wisconsin driver racing at his home track, who's had a struggle this year, then gets his best finish of the season. Nolan Aller finishing in top 10. Michael D'Orlando got a late call, but was able to jump in and race this weekend and finished 11th. There were 16 of the race's 21 drivers that finished. Lindsey Brewer was 6 seconds off of the car in front of her, finishing in 16th. That car that she finished behind was Jack William Miller, who had gotten sent off the course a couple of times, which led to why he was there. Miles Rowe was running in the top 10 and crashed with James Rowe, so not related, two different spellings. Or Jordan Missig, sorry. He crashed with Jordan Missig to fall out of the race there. They crashed in turn 1. So that was the Indy Lights. Abel leads the points by 19. 19 points over Louis Foster. Third is Kyle Collette. And then fourth is still Nolan Siegel. So right now it's basically Abel and Foster battling for the championship. Chadwick moves herself up into 9th in the standings. And there really is a decent battle points-wise. Starting with fifth and 6th place, because Gold and Hedge are tied. And then there's a pretty close battle points-wise for after that. So, opportunity for Chadwick to move herself up the field, possibly get a top 5 finish in the point standings there. NHRA was at Bristol this past weekend, and the Super Grip Thunder Valley Nationals, Tony Schumacher getting a victory. It's not that it's shocking that Tony Schumacher won, because he has won I don't know how many races, but it's been a while. So credit to him there, beating Doug Coletta. So Tony Schumacher beating his old tuner, Alan Johnson, in the process. So Doug Coletta smoked the tires, looks like, and he was dead late as well. So that's convenient. So in funny car, Austin Prock gets the victory there, so wins his 2nd funny car race, and then 6th win of his career in pro categories over J.R. Todd. Then in pro stock, Jed Coughlin Jr. beats Greg Anderson in a Elite versus KB Titan showdown. Issues for Greg Anderson. Anderson here for a severe tire shake. So yeah. So 2nd Wally for Coughlin of 2024, number 67 of his Hall of Fame career. And then Gage Herrera won again. So most consecutive wins in motorcycles. He breaks the tie with Dave Schultz there, who used to be the Vance and Hines rider way back when. He wins his 4th Wally of the season, 15th of his career. Basically would have swept the entire season last year if it weren't for red lights. Those bikes are so fast and they have so many advantages that it's laughable at this point. Trying to even bother to compete. The points in top field, Doug Coletta still maintains a points lead by 22 over Justin Ashley, 48 over his teammate Sean Langdon. Steve Torrance is minus 109 in 4th. Tony Schumacher minus 160 in 5th. Right now, Tony Stewart and Brittany Force are right at the edge, 9th and 10th in points. Stewart has struggled to go rounds, even get down the racetrack. Brittany Force failed to qualify a couple of races ago. So, a former multi-time champion, right now flirting with the bump, the 10th place, which is a cutoff. The 42 plus 60, it was a 61 or something points. 42 plus, 61 points over Josh Hart. So that's just over 3 rounds. And then you have Sean Reed also. So those are really the drivers that are in contention. Jasmine Salinas, I wonder if she would get in because her dad raced to start the year, but that would be something to see. In terms of funny car, Austin Prock has a 64-point lead on his team owner, John Force. J.R. Todd, minus 109 in third. Matt Hagan, minus 117 in fourth. And then huge gap, Bob Tasca's in fifth. Right now, Cruz Pentragon is just outside the top 10. He's 6 points behind Paul Lee. And then Blake Alexander is 15 points back there. So those 3 drivers are going to have battle probably to the end of the regular season. In Pro Stock, Dallas Glenn has a 21-point lead on his teammate at Greg Anderson and a 35-point lead on Enders. Coughlin with the win moves himself to within 130 points out in fourth. Stanfield, Troy Coughlin Jr., Jerry Tucker, the Quadras, Christian David, and then Brandon Foster rounding out the top 10. Foster up by 22 points on Derek Kramer. Matt Hartford's had a struggle this year after such a great year last year. Then in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera has a 174-point lead on Matt Smith. Then Richard Gadsden and John Hall separated by 8 points. Angie Smith and Chase Van Zandt separated by 1 point apiece, 5th and 6th. Ellie Tonglet is 6 points behind Angie Smith. So that's a good battle between those 3. Hector Arana, Gianna Evaristo, Steve Johnson rounding out the top 10. Steve Johnson 5 points ahead of Ingwerson. Bostic 27 points back. 29 points back is Ayler. Kelly Klontz, who's a waste of life, is 14th. So the next race on the schedule will be the Virginia Nationals, which will lead into a back-to-back at the Virginia and then Norwalk back-to-back. So they'll have a week off this coming weekend. The 24 Hours of Le Mans will be this weekend, one of the crown jewel events. Le Mans 2024 official website. There was testing so far this weekend, and there's been pace for Toyota. There's also been pace for the Penske Porsches, which have been the leading cars, I think, at this whole season for the 2024 World Endurance Championship. So interesting how that all works out there. In terms of the field, you have how many? 23 cars in the hypercar category. You have 16 LMP2s, and 23 in the GT3 category. I'm just looking through. Yeah, the Cadillac Racing will have 2 cars for this race. You have Earl Bamba, Alex Lynn, and Alex Palou in the 1 car. Sebastian Bourdais and Renger van der Zande, along with Scott Dixon, will be in the 2nd car. So I think Bamber and Lynn race in the WEC. Palou drafted in as a 3rd driver. Bourdais and Renger van der Zande race in IMSA. And then Scott Dixon's usually their 3rd driver. Penske Porsche Motorsport has 3 cars. No Dane Cameron, unfortunately. I guess he's a reserve driver. Jaminet, Nasser, Tandy, and the number 4, Campbell, Christensen, Makowicki in the 5, and then Kevin Estra, Lauderer, and Lawrence Vanthor in the number 6. So Lauderer trying to go for I don't know how many wins at Le Mans. Then the 2 Toyotas. They had to draft Jose Maria Lopez in because there was an injury for I'm forgetting who the driver was. They had issue concedes poor Le Mans Porsches to lose after test 1-2. Kobayashi. Mike Conway had had a injury, so then Jose Maria Lopez gets the call over test driver Ryomo Miata. The Isata Fraschini car was J.K. Vernay, Carl Bennett, I think, the Hertz Team Joda Sport car that's talking about Callum Ilott. They won at Spa. So Callum Ilott, Will Stevens, Norman Nato. The first of the 2 BMWs returning to Le Mans in the in the top category for the first time since the early 2000s, I believe. Dries Vanthor, Rafael Marciello, and Marco Wittmann in the number 15. Then the number 20, Sheldon van der Linde, Robin Freins, and Rene Rast. The Lamborghini Iron Lynx team, I mentioned Romain Grosjean, there he is. Andrea Calderari and Matteo Chiroli. Alpine has 2 cars, Mick Schumacher amongst their driver lineup. The 2nd Porsche Joda sport car, Oliver Rasmussen, Philip Hansen, Jensen Button. The Ferraris, the number 51 is the defending race winner with Alessandro Perguidi, James Collado, and Antonio Giovinazzi. The 2nd Iron Lynx Lamborghini is Danny Kvyat, Eduardo Mortara, and Mirko Bartolotti. They have Corsa Ferrari, Kubica, Schwartzman, and Yaffe. You have the 2 Peugeots that were changed around, so we'll see how they perform. The Proton Porsche, and then the Invitational number 311 Whelen Cadillac with Pippo Durrani, Jack Aiken, and Felipe Drogovic. So that's a good driver lineup for sure. And no American representation in the hypercar class. There's a Canadian, Antonio Serravalle, who's part of that Isata Fraschini team. And I think that's as close as we're gonna get, unless you want to go with Brazil. But then in LMP2 there is American representation. There's American teams, the Cadillac, the Ganassi team, and then the Whelen Engineering Cadillac team. Then in LMP2, you have the United Autosports, the AO by TF car, PJ Hyatt, Louis Delatrez, Alex Quinn. Then the United Autosports number 23. It's a Pro-Am car. Ben Keating, Philippe Albuquerque, and Ben Hanley. I'm trying to go through some of these others. You have John Falb for Duquesne team, George Kurtz, Naveen Rao, Rodrigo Salas. All of those are in the Pro-Am categories. Bejoy Garg for United Autosport. And Colin Brown for CrowdStrike Racing by APR. Veteran, there's Scott Huffaker for the Panis Racing team. Nolan Siegel, who we mentioned earlier, he'll be driving also for United Autosports. Kiffin Simpson, the IndyCar driver, Nielsen Racing. And Scott Huffaker, I mentioned. Then we have the LMGT3. There's 23 cars. Harder Racing team comes from the United States with their Aston Martin, Ian James, Daniel Mancinelli, and an Alex Riberas. They list all the bronzes, I think, in the one line. Ryan Hardwick, one of those, driving for the Proton Ford Mustang team. Brendan Rebay for Inception Motorsports and their McLaren. And then, the number 46 WRT. Christopher, I don't know who that is. That's Invitation. But the number 46 WRT, that's a team, of course, with Valentino Rossi, BMW. I'm curious how they'll do. Then you have Simon Mann for AF Corsa, Ferrari. You have nobody, I don't know, Marie. And then, don't know any of those. I probably do, but I know some of them, don't know all of them offhand. Jordan Taylor actually will be in the Spirit of Race Ferrari number 155. So, interesting. There's an actual driver named Erwin Bastard. Or Erwan Bastard, probably, because it's French. But
what a name.
Erwin Bastard. That's how it's spelled. I'm not even lying. I
know, but it's just funny.
But it's just hilarious that there's somebody named. Yeah, that's something. And he drives for the Japanese D Station team. Marco Sorensen, Satoshi Hoshino. Got some. There are some names in this category. But 62 cars, 23 GT cars, 23 hypercars, and then the 16 LMP2 cars, which don't get to race in the World Endurance Championship. So this is a opportunity for them to be in front of the world. So it'll be interesting to see. Don't really have any predictions, so to speak. I would say, though, the way that Porsche has performed, and the way they've performed so far this year, I wouldn't bet against them. The way that Penske's, even when they've gotten nailed with cheating or whatever, in IndyCar, they just went back to winning. So wouldn't believe anything else if it were to happen. Then you have the Supercars Darwin Triple Crown. So Supercars, Repco Supercars Championship. DJR. Oh, wow. That's huge news. Just 3 days before Darwin, they go and get rid of their team manager. There'll be they have the indigenous liveries that are coming out as well, so that's big for the one round they're going to have with that. Driver standings heading in. Will Brown leading the points by a good amount, over 100, and it's like 140 some odd points there. Over teammate Brock Feeney. Brock Feeney is 39 points ahead of Chaz Mostert. You have Cam Waters. Then there's a huge gap between Mostert, couple hundred points, him and Waters. Matthew Payne rounding out the top 5. Nick Percat, Will Davis, and Anton DePasquale, the Shell V-Power Racing teammates. Richie Stanaway, and then Thomas Randall. They're all clustered together. DePasquale, Stanaway, and Randall all tied. So we'll see what happens. Right now, the Red Bull Ampol AAA team has won 6 races this year in 3 poles. Ford's by themselves and have won, 2 races? 2 races this year, so it's been a struggle for the Ford teams to qualify better, it seems, so we'll see what they do at Darwin and WSBK. World Superbikes, momentous title fight to the Adriatic. Results. The point standings right now, Alvaro Bautista is 6 points out of Toprak Raskat Lioku and 14 points out of Nicolo Balega. You have Alex Lowe's, who's 30 points back and forth. So there's 4 guys that are really in contention early on in the season. They were racing once a month for the first 3 months, then they took the whole month of May off, and now they're racing this weekend. Garrett Gerloff, right now currently 12th in points, 17 points behind Dominique Hargeter for 10th, and then 18 points behind Danilo Petrucci, who's a position ahead of that. So we'll see how he can do, and if he can get closer to the top 10. So now we'll move over to NASCAR preview of the Cup and Xfinity at Iowa Speedway. First time for our Iowa to hold a Cup and Xfinity Cup race, and then first time for the Xfinity Series in many years there. I'm trying to find that, so trying to go and look for Iowa Speedway track Cup. Go and look at that. Go to Iowa. Yeah, so Xfinity hasn't raced there since 2019, and the last winner there was Chase Briscoe. So that was his first career win, or second career win. His first one was at the Roval the prior fall, and then that was his first win of the season in his first full year. Yeah, trucks, they had competed in 19. That was the last time they were there, but they're not there this weekend. ARCA Menard Series actually has been there the last few years. Keebler Gibbs has won there twice. Chase Briscoe won there in an ARCA car. Yeah, Dalton Sargent, Logan Sargent's brother, won there in 2017. Alex Bowman, going way back, 2012. He's got Kligerman in 09. Granted, figure racing Mitchell. Sheldon Creed won in 2018. Chandler Smith in 2019. I mentioned Keebler Gibbs twice. Buckshot Jones in 22. Keebler Gibbs getting the win in the ARCA East So then K&N, the last time the West Series race there was 2019. Sam Mayer won that one. Todd Gilliland has won there twice. Buckshot Jones. Ben Rhodes, Custer's, and Corey LaJoie actually won there in 2012. Clyde, also that year. Kyle Busch in 2009. And Pizza Face won there the first time in 2007. So that's a interesting turnabout. I'll try to go through. Eric Jones won there twice in a truck as well. So, you got Priest, Bell twice, Eric Jones, the Keselowski, Busher, Blaney. Richard won 3 consecutive races there. Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski won the first ever Xfinity race at Iowa Speedway, driving for Junior JRM. So, I guess I did ask the question. Before we get into that, we talk about NBC returning. I think it's going to be similar to what it was prior to Junebug, meaning they're going to have 3-man booth with Rick Allen, Letard, and Jeff Burton. I'd rather they have Alan Bestwick, Dale Jarrett, and I guess you can have Letard. He's not bad at what he does. I've started to be able to tolerate him, but Jeff Burton adds absolutely nothing to the broadcast, so I don't know why he's there. Make more of an emphasis on the infield studio or infield pit box, because you have people down there with insight, whether it's DJ, whether it's I think Jimmy Johnson's probably going to be another one that they're going to be able to lean on. Car owner, but he's, I think, capable of adding great insights there. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the Xfinity side, since they're not going to have the entire rest of the season, but it sounds like they're farming out talent to cover the series too, so maybe it's status quo over there on the Xfinity side. How do you feel now, Josh, knowing that, of course, Junior's not going to be there? Does it affect your liking, or does it affect you at all in terms of not having Junior there? Because, of course, he was very dynamic. He would yell. It was funny when he did yell, but he was very aware of everything, better than a lot of the, whether it was a director or producer out there. He was like another spotter, and he obviously knew his stuff. He was funny, and he's the gain for Turner in terms of their and Amazon for their package that they're going to start next year. But can NBC fade losing Junebug, Josh?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's gonna be weird without Dale Jr. I think that's the big thing for me. It's weird not hearing him on the broadcast. But as far as like just the overall thing, I think they're gonna miss his presence and insight as far as how he calls races, because I think one of his gripes he was hinting at, and he might have denied it, but a lot of people were, or at least online, thinking that NASCAR, or not NASCAR, but NBC and possibly Fox going in a direction where where they're going to be relying more on the TV to call races rather than watching the action on track live. But I think that's something he's good at. He's actually watching the racing going on, and everything. So that's going to be missed. I think he's a student of the sport, so I think his insight there, I think, is going to be missed as well. So Jeff Burton, I mean, that was kind of an interesting pick when he retired, I guess, and decided he was going to go on into the TV booth. It was interesting his first couple of years, but ever since Dale Jr. joined, I felt like he was kind of the one that was expendable as far as the people on the broadcast. And I definitely think there was a lot of clutter and things like that between Dale Jr. and Jeff Burton. The pitch of their voices are very similar. They come from the same region in North Carolina and Virginia, so they both kind of very similar in that aspect. But I think Dale Jr., he's gonna be missed, but it'd be a little bit less noisy, I guess. I mean, I know there are some parts that I think he needs to get better at, is calling the races, and some of the shouting and stuff could be toned back, but maybe that's also NBC trying to inject something, maybe trying to get him to react. I don't know. So we'll see how he is on Amazon and TNT. We'll see how he does there and everything. Obviously going to be a shorter schedule for him there, but they're gonna miss his presence for sure. And Rick Allen, we don't have to deal with Rick Allen, I think, until the Brickyard or something, and then Lee Diffie will take over on the broadcast after that and everything. So that's going to be another difference, which I think will be definitely better there. But Dale Jr. not being there is definitely going to miss him not being on the broadcast. But we'll see how it goes on Sunday. I mean, or this week. I think for NBC, it's definitely going to be more professional than Fox, for sure. Or at least it seems like whatever people complain about Fox doing wrong, NBC kind of seems to respond to that, I guess, and how they present the sport and the contrast and the presentation, certainly more professional. But they still have their bits that that they complain or need to improve on, and everything. So I think they'll have their things that we need to complain about too. So I think for Fox, I mean, they barely showed any. I mean, we can going circling back to Sonoma, they barely showed anything that happened on the last lap with Truex. Where exactly did he run out of gas? What happened to Kyle Busch on the final lap? Chase Elliott knocking Ross Chastain out of the way. We didn't see any of that on replay for Fox. They got out of Dodge as quickly as possible and everything. So for NBC, I definitely think they'll focus on that, being able to show stuff that Fox was neglecting throughout the first half of the season on TV. So it's gonna be different, of course, but there'll be things that we'll complain about for the next couple weeks, especially with Rick Allen. So it'll be kind of like pre 2018 NBC there. So back to the 3-man booth, which I think 3-man booth is fine. I think 4 is too much, and it's hard to like I said earlier, it's hard to get insight from everybody because you can only have so many people talking at the same time, and having a fourth man. I mean, Dale Jr. was the fourth man, but I'd rather just see him and Let's Hart Rick Allen or whoever in there instead of Jeff Burton. So now it's back to the original booth that they had for many years. So yeah, it'll be different and be interesting to see next week what Dale Jr. says in response to, because I'm sure it'll be a topic on his show next week when they do the race on NBC. And then, he talks about it on Tuesday Dirty Air episode for the Dale Jr. download on there, what his insight will be on there. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, but at least for Cup, I mean, Xfinity, I think they'll use the same production from NASCAR, but they'll probably just like how Speed Channel, you had the same guys on Speed Channel as you did on Sunday for a lot of those things. So it might be similar like that. We'll see, at least for now. But Dale not being on there definitely going to be, interesting without him.
Yeah, that was a big part of what drew me to the NBC broadcast was Junior. There's definitely room to make adjustments. I mean, whether it's Rick Allen, whether it's Lee Diffie or somebody else like Alan Bestwick, putting him with Letarte probably is the right idea. You have other drivers there. I would rather they put DJ back in the booth personally, but that's just me. So, other than that, I mean, Kyle Petty will just yell, "These guys," and that's incredible. But you would at least add some color to the broadcast. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a Sunday night race at Iowa, so we'll see what happens with that. I asked about the grooves, and I mean, you talked about the testing that took place with tire tests, and are we looking at the possibility because of this car, because of the characteristics of this track, and then they paved the inside, are we looking at a one groove processional race, or are we looking at the possibility of something coming off because the tires may not hold up, or things like it might be like Bristol that way? I figure that there will be opportunity to rise up front, no matter where you start, but we'll see what happens with that. But what are you thinking, Josh?
That's gonna be interesting too. I think, like initially, could the inside line be the way to go, or the middle be the way to go? But as we go throughout a run and tires wear out, does the high line come in, even though it's got the worn out phase, or does it just stay single file? I think we won't really know until practice, later this week, what that looks like. But I think it could be interesting, if they get into a battle or, into a green flag long duration run where we see strategies play out. But, if late caution comes out and we see, everybody all on the same tires, then it'll probably just be, really hard to pass, and whoever gets a good restart into turn one will probably win the race if it comes down to a late race caution restart scenario. So we'll see how that plays out. But of course, be interesting to see how tires play out as well. We've seen tires be a factor late race restarts with guys trying to gamble on old tires. Kind of remember going back all the way back to 2014 when Ryan Hunter-Reay won on new tires in IndyCar in a late race restart. And a bunch of guys stayed out and tried to gamble, and then he went and got tires and I think passed the whole field in like 3 laps or so and won that race, which that one's like, sticks out to me and everything. And I think, something like that could come out if, teams are, willing to gamble. So we'll see how this goes. But I think we'll have to get more data, as we go in with practice on, the beginning or, before Sunday. And both Xfinity and Cup, I think you have to kind of watch both to kind of understand what you're going to get in the Cup race on Sunday.
Yeah, we're gonna see what if some of these improvements that they've been talking about, and with the repave or at least a partial repave, how that all settles out at Iowa this weekend. But we'll talk about it next week on episode 225 of the GSP. The Xfinity series, we'll go with, or actually, we'll go with the Cup. Yeah, no, we'll go Xfinity first. With their return, first time in 5 years. And then, as I mentioned, Chase Briscoe won that race. So interesting how that all worked out. 30. Oh no, that's the Cup entry list. The entry list for the Xfinity series is they're 38 for 38. So no, nobody gonna go home. Usual suspect Dawson Cram in the 4 with his dad as his crew chief. That's cool. Garrett Smithley back in the 6. Case Callenbach as crew chief. Daniel Dye as Felipe Lopez as his crew chief on the 10 for Colleague. Brett Moffitt, the Iowa driver, will be in the 19 for Gibbs. Sean Hunter racing in the 20. There's Hank Hill, Corey Heim, 8. Yeah, he's in. You have Joey Gase. There's nobody in the 53, so I could have a further short field. Weatherman, Ross Chastain in the 92, and Emerling 07, and then the 14 for SS Greenlight. So, last week I went first, so Josh, you get the first dibs on picks for Xfinity.
I think for me, and this is going to be an interesting pick for me, but I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Chandler Smith. I was going to say Justin Allgaier and actually have his stats pulled up right now, but I think you can go with one of those two guys. I'm going to go with Chandler Smith because I think he's a little bit better this year. I think Toyota's JGR are better on pace. He's also won the last 2 years in Richmond, which is very similar track to Iowa. I was, very similar when, they built it. Rusty Wallace, one of the designers of that track initially, and they modeled it after Richmond. So I think Richmond is going to be a very good indicator racing wise. I mean, it's different with the pavement, but, at least the style of racing, I think, is going to be very similar to Richmond. So I'm going to go with Chandler Smith, who's won the last 2 years at that track. So there's my main pick, and then wild card pick. Go with I need to pull up the standings here as well, but just Allgaier here. Just looking at his stats, we also successful there, so not a bad pick at all there. Yeah, I will go with, I'll go again with 2 weeks in a row or something. I'll go with Josh Williams. Picked him a while back as a wild card for Portland, so why not? I'll go with him again this week. A new track, I guess, for good majority of this field, so we'll see how maybe it's going to be a bit of an even playing field.
I mean, Josh Williams has experience on that racetrack in ARCA, but that was years ago. Possible opportunity here, though, for him in this weekend's race. We had 20, 23, and 24, 25, 26. So guess we can do 20. 26 really. So yeah, I mean when it comes to Iowa Speedway, it used to be a place where SHR would go out and be able to dominate. And based on past history, gonna say Cole Custer will be the winner at Iowa. Custer to win, and wild card pick. That was 13th. I will go with I'm gonna go with Parker Retzloff as my wild card because he definitely has the speed and potential in that 31 car, and they're trying to make up points, so could probably be flirting in the front or flirting with the front because of his pace, at least on one lap pace. We'll move to the Cup Series. And I will get first cracks at it in the Cup Series. Iowa Corn 350. 37 for 40, so there's no problem there. David Starr will be in the 66. Otherwise, I think everything else is the usual. Kaz Grala back in the 15. You just got some different sponsors, but for me, the way that track could, the track can rubber in and take marbles and the whole bit. I don't know if I picked Martin Truex recently. I feel like I have. I did pick Martin Truex at Gateway, and I'm going to go with. You said that Larson tested. Who else? Do you remember who else tested offhand? Or I can probably check it here.
There's two other drivers, I think. Ah, man, I forgot. I forgot who. But it was definitely Larson. And
Larson, and then doesn't say anything about who else tested there, but trying to figure that out. No, just give me a second here. So, tire test, Iowa Speedway, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski. Yeah, Keselowski, Larson, and Christopher Bell. Okay. So, why not? I'll just go Kyle Larson. Go chalk, yeah. To win. And unfortunately, I can't make, or can I? He's not, I have to look at the points. There's, what is it? You got everybody. Yeah, 34. Ugh, right on the cusp. So that's Yeah, that's the top. And you know what? I'm just gonna do it, even though it's totally different car, totally different time. My wild card for Iowa is Richard, the three-time winner at Iowa Speedway. Trying to harken back to
The
the old days when he was actually
2011.
good. Yeah, when he was actually good. It's supposed to be a wild card, and usually my picks are out there, so why not? I wanted to pick Chase, but he's right on the edge of all the eligible. He's on the top half actually, so I'm gonna actually go with Richard. So that is something. But Josh, you get the last call on picks for Iowa.
Uh, for me, I'm gonna go with Denny Hamlin. Similar again theory here. Richmond, he's a guy that's won at Richmond in the past. When won there this year, so I'm gonna go with him winning this weekend. My wild card. But you're going with old Stenhouse. I'm gonna go with Mr. McDriver, Michael McDowell, which is also out there. But he's been a guy. The 34. I mean, they're only 20th in points. So he's had 3 poles this year, and this might be the type of track where they can come out. Especially if things end up kind of being straightforward based on the pavement. If they have a good qualifying day, maybe they find themselves a top 10 finish here at the end of the day. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. But he's definitely a guy that needs a good result if he wants to make it back into the playoffs for this year.
Yeah, that is very true. And then all the momentum, of course. I think they're one of the teams that got penalized at some point earlier this year, and that's part of the reason why they are behind. They didn't get the finishes that I think fit the speed that they have with those cars early in the season. So if McDowell goes out there and does pretty well, he's got that Xfinity experience from back in the day, to ARCA experience, so he understands our racetrack. So we'll see what happens with that. Josh, it's your time now. Let us know what's going on in iRacing and gaming in the sim segment.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, iRacing Season 3 coming out this week. Season 3 update rolled out. New content, of course, on the sim with iRacing this week. So obviously we've talked about it. The new Ford Mustang GT3, the Chevrolet Corvette Z06R as well, or GT3, whichever one it is. That's on there. That's part of the update this week. Obviously, lots of change as always for new updates on iRacing. Pulled up the update sheet here. Season 3 release. Dirt racing improved for threshold of wrong way. Some setups. GT3R Z06. Some setups there being fixed for the Chevrolet Corvette, also with the Ford Mustang as well. Some patching being updated for this car being released. They a lot of cars getting the damage model, the iRacing damage model that's been rolled out over the last year getting improved. So now all these cars have the same amount of damage or the same type of damage model. So more dynamic than what it used to be. and everything. So that should be interesting. iRacing, I think track updates as well. Circuit of the Americas updated. Nürburgring updated. Oswego Speedway, dirt track over in New York, updated. Yeah, so a lot of Circuit Jerez updated. Plenty of updates here for all the content. So yeah, season 3 underway for iRacing now, and they continue to roll out the rain update. Hopefully, at some point we'll get the IndyCar updated to have the rain model on here as well. So looking, hopefully we can get that going. So definitely going to be interesting with some of this new content. Going to need to hop on that Ford. Really like that Ford GT3 from Rolex 24 when I was there. So looking forward to that. As far as events go, I think this weekend they got the 6 hours Watkins Glen sim event going on throughout the weekend. So Friday through Sunday. So that's going to be interesting. Also, AI is part of this as well. We have a lot of the new content as well. Getting AI for this, so this should be fun to race against AI and stuff. Do some AI racing offline, so that is always fun. If you want to just practice with in a real situation without people, that's always a good call to do there. So other stuff happening this week, of course. I think there's always that. So Rainmaster series, iRacing Esports series, plenty of content there. Of course, regular content, the NASCAR Legends series, of course, being this week at Homestead, so that should be interesting. All the Cup, Xfinity, and I think Truck, all at Iowa Speedway this week for NASCAR. And I think you got IndyCar this week, still at Road America. Interesting. Or then fixed IndyCar, I think, and at Laguna Seca. So that's would reflect the real schedule. So now you have that coming up. Fixed IndyCar, still at, where's the IndyCar Oval series that I like? Yeah, the IndyCar Oval at Michigan, so old Michigan too, so not new Michigan, so before repave. So that's interesting there. Yeah, and Truck Series at Iowa too. So lots of Iowa opportunity, which it's a good track. And it's not the repave Iowa either, because obviously they haven't had time to put that in yet. So still have the Iowa that we've known from the past. iRacing IMSA series at Watkins Glen. Ford Mustang FR500 Lime Rock Park. Production Sim Lab Challenge at Okayama Circuit. Motorsport Arena Oslersman for the Global Fanatec Challenge, which the Kia and the Cadillac CTS-V race car there. Rainmaster at Mugello this week. GR86 at Watkins Glen this week. So that's fun there. Let's see what else I have that I can hop in. Got the the Dallara P217 at Watkins Glen also on there. And then in Formula Car Series this week, Formula Ford 1600 at Oulton Park. Both series, so that's good there. Lotus, the old Lotus car at Long Beach. F3 at Spa. Road America and the F4. IndyCar, I think, still at this week, so that should be interesting. Formula B, Super Formula at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So the race, Canadian Grand Prix, basically. So got that, everything. So yeah, as always, lots of choices now. Season 3 for Indy or for iRacing in 2024. So they continue to push out more content. Also, totally forgot there's new street stock cars as well. So short track racing getting some updates there. So good for iRacing supporting the short track racing universe as well. So good stuff there. But yeah, as always, there's definitely content to always try out new content and stuff on iRacing. So definitely take a look at that. Which, of course, if stream as always, stream at UCailor2. Go in there and look at the streams and go in there and see all past broadcasts. The Indy 500, of course, was the last thing I did on there. So yeah, go and take a look at that. What else? Twitter for me, JP Huffline, of course. Talking about all the things I'm interested in with all the racing, the Jags coming up. This upcoming season, 30th anniversary, going to be interesting there, which we'll talk about as we get closer to football. And then of course our YouTube page at Gripster Podcasts on YouTube, and go in there, watch all our streams and everything, and give us a like and subscribe there if you haven't. So yeah, always glad to be able to talk about it and everything. So yeah, it's a interesting week, wet and wild. I was talking with a friend about, the F1 race on Sunday. They're getting into F1. Yeah. So, just telling them about it. And, they were surprised at Ferrari's strategy for Carlos and, Charles Leclerc. And I was like, that's Ferrari every week. So, that's interesting. But yeah, we'll see how Iowa goes, and we'll see, how 24 Hours of Le Mans, how that goes. That should be interesting too.
Yeah, plenty of great cars there. Should be basically an all-out sprint from the drop of the green flag or drop of the French flag, or I think that's what they do to start the race. So there, but thank you, Josh, as always, for all your insights and contributions, and the great work you do to obviously post the show on our YouTube page and make the YouTube page and handle this side and handle the back end on the live show too. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter. You can find me PhilipGMatthew28 on Instagram. Find PhilipGMatthew.com is the blog site. You can also have the show posted over there. Also can find my YouTube page has the audio feeds from the show itself as well. So when we download it on Podbean, which is our sharing, our the site where we share or post our shows, then we have that. So yeah, then I have there's a channel GSP 1428. That's mine there. Doesn't look like they updated. It is updated. It only is updated to episode 220, so it doesn't look like it got the last episode, or the last few episodes. So I'm gonna have to check that. But definitely go to the blog site philipgmatthew.com for that. You can find me, and that's where you can find me on social media. So with that, we will be back next week for episode 225 of the GSP, going over NASCAR Cup and Xfinity at Iowa, the 24-hour Le Mans, And then we'll preview the Indy cars at Laguna, Formula One in Barcelona, and then much, much more leading into the summer officially by next week, later in that week. So look forward to talking all about that and all kinds of motorsports here on the GSP. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting. And we'll see you next time.